Hello everyone, we are back with another episode. This is a very important topic when it comes to the scope of philosophy because metaphysics is one of the main branches of philosophy. So, what does the term metaphysics mean? Actually, it's a branch of philosophy which deals with the first principles of things. It includes concepts like being, knowing, identity, time, and space. Immanuel Kant is one of the central figures in modern philosophy. His main contributions towards philosophy are the three critiques that he had written: the critique of pure reason, the critique of practical reason, and the critique of judgment. He was interested in epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics. The question that he raised in the critique of pure reason was: how are synthetic a priori propositions possible? In order to explain answers to that question, he divided this question into three subsections. How are the synthetic a priori propositions of mathematics possible? He answered in the doctrine of transcendental aesthetics and the doctrine of transcendental ideal. And the second question is: how are the synthetic a priori propositions of natural science possible? He answered in the transcendental analytic. And the third question was: how are the synthetic a priori propositions of metaphysics possible? So he answered it in the transcendental dialectics. The noun transcendence means the existence beyond the physical level, and the adjective transcendental means that something that relates to a spiritual realm. However, it will be misunderstood if the term transcendental has used in the sense of transcendence, which describes the ultimate realm. Kant claims that I call on cognition transcendental, that is occupied not so much with objects but rather with the mode of cognition of object insofar as this is to be possible a priori. He says that he does not refer to objects as transcendental, but the knowledge of objects and the mode of knowledge with the nature of a priori are taken as transcendental. Thus, he prefers the term transcendental to an epistemological ground, like it is related to his objective of describing the nature, origin, and limitations of knowledge, rather than emphasizing a metaphysical, transcendental, and ultimate ground. Human beings are aware of the external world which can be perceivable. For Kant, is not the reality. However, the human is not aware of the things which are beyond from the external reality. Pure reason can carry them beyond the phenomenal world, but those matters do not receive percepts like God. He gives priority to reason in his explanation of dialectics. According to Kant, we see things as only as they appear to us and not as they really are. He further stated that although the mind cannot give direct knowledge on the external objects, appearance can give that type of knowledge. Illusionary nature can be occurred because of these appearances. Therefore, Kant has claimed that there is a transcendental illusion within transcendental dialectics. Kant uses the transcendental dialectic section to uncover illusions. He mentioned those illusions as transcendental illusions. It is an unavoidable illusion enticed from the understanding a transcendent use, which, although deceptive, cannot be kept in limits by a resolve to stay within the bounds of experience, but only by scientific instruction and taking pains. And he identified these things as illusions because these transcendental illusions can misguide humans. Kant summarized these transcendental things into a system that consists of three main sections. He has mentioned them as speculative psychology, which is based on the absolute monism of the soul, as transcendental paralogisms, Speculative cosmology on the absolute monism of the things that appear as antinomies, and speculative theology on the God as the cause of the world and as an ideal of pure reason. Besides, Kant used dialectics to refute such reason and pure reason. Kant's dialectics can be considered as a critique of theoretical metaphysics. Thus, it has been mentioned in the critique of pure reason that transcendental dialectics is not an art of generating dogmatic illusion. However, it is a critique of understanding and a reason for its hyperphysical usage. His intention of these dialectical arguments was to lead to innovations in logic and epistemology. Moreover, paralogisms of objects occurs when the pure reason of the soul applies categories. According to Kant, they are transcendental. However, it does not give phenomenological knowledge. There is indeed a monism of subjects. Regardless of that, even philosophers who have lived before Kant have argued about the monism of the subjects and the immortality of the soul. Even George Berkeley, who was an empiricist, has also emphasized an immortal soul. Kant's transcendental dialectics has introduced a new formation of arguments which can make an integral understanding of reality. Right. The first one is the speculative psychology, which is based on the absolute monism of the soul as transcendental paralogisms. There are separate waves of the soul in the history of Western philosophy, as European rationalists and British empiricists have dogmatically argued about that. Rationalists have argued that the soul is a self existing and self identical object. Thus, Descartes has accepted an immaterial mind by stating his I think, therefore I am argument. He believed that it is possible to gain human knowledge from the cogito argument. However, British empiricists like David Hume rejected its absolute nature. Kant had a unique view on this matter. He argued against Descartes and rationalists. He mentioned that the failure of recognizing the difference between appearances and things in themselves would lead to a transcendental error. It is impossible to get to know the truth from transcendental concepts. For Kant, absolute monism is a transcendental concept, and he categorized them as transcendental paralogisms that give invalid knowledge about the soul. So, the next one is the speculative cosmology on the absolute monism of the things that appear as antinomies. This is a second part of transcendental dialectics. These are the methodical problems of rationalism. Human beings got to constitute paralogisms of the soul because of the unawareness of the limitedness of the mind, such as they got to constitute antinomies about the world. Thus, it can be considered as the unresolved dialogue about the knowledge of the world that occurred between skepticism and dogmatism. Categories, which means quality, quantity, relation, and modality, are used to gain knowledge for the external world. The mind tries to constitute a metaphysical knowledge of the world instead of the knowledge that we can gain from the things that appear to us in the external world. Those categories cannot use to constitute metaphysical knowledge about the universe. If we use that way to constitute metaphysical knowledge, then only the antinomies of the world would be created. So it is possible to identify four types of antinomies, and each antinomy had a thesis and an antithesis. It can be validly proved, like things which are related to the boundless world, by using the thesis and antithesis. The first antinomy is about the creation of the world. It is stated that both that the world has a beginning in time and space with a finite nature, and the world has no beginning in the time, and the space as the thesis and antithesis. The second antinomy is about the simple parts. It can be indicated with the arguments that say every composite substance is made out of simple parts, and in contrast, nothing is composed of simple parts. The third antinomy is about free will. As a thesis, it says that everything in the world does not operate according to the relationship between cause and effect. And to illustrate, like there are determinism, interdeterminism, and free will. As the antithesis, it is stated that everything in the world operates according to causality and free will, and determinism is do not exist. The fourth antinomy is about God, and it has merged for and against the existence of a necessary being. The thesis has stated that in the series of causes of the world, there is some necessary being, and the antithesis has mentioned that there is nothing necessary in it, but in this series, everything is contingent. As it has mentioned by Kant, the thesis is based on a dogmatic state. Mainly, theologists and rationalists have given the thesis as an important role. Empiricists have admired antitheses. According to Kant, metaphysics have not been considered sciences throughout the history of philosophy. They have been metaphysics because they were not aware of the infinite nature of the mind. For that, those arguments were not identified as antinomies. The theses and antitheses are equally valid, therefore, it is difficult to conclude the thesis as an antithesis. However, Kant has mentioned that arguing for thesis and antithesis would not be able to derive reality. For Kant, it has not given an important role for thesis and antithesis when critically discussing them. Thus, Kant has claimed that both thesis and antithesis lead to a transcendental illusion. The last one is the speculative theology on the God as the cause of the world, as ideal of pure reason. So, the creator God is the core area in speculative theology. The concept of God is not a complete one, but an empty one. This is the third state of transcendental idea, which provides material for that use of reason, which is the most important for all, but which, if pursued merely speculatively, is a hyperbolical, transcendental, and thereby dialectical use of it, is the idea of pure reason. According to Kant, as the concept of God is out of a human experience, uh, we are not able to get knowledge about God. The theologists and thinkers who do not understand its idealness have tried to prove the existence of God. Those ways can be summarized into three arguments: ontological argument, cosmological argument, and theological argument. So, when it comes to the ontological argument, it states that God is an all good, all powerful being, and this statement itself proves the existence of God. Existence is a quality, however, before applying a quality to an object, its existence should be proved. For Kant, this argument does not prove the existence of God. For instance, it is possible to construct a concept of a glass mountain that can be existence within one's mind, but it's not required to exist in the external world. Similarly, although a concept of God has can exist within one's mind, it's not required for the type of a supernatural being to exist in phenomenal world. And when it comes to the cosmological argument, it is based on an ontological argument. Kant was confident about the failure of cosmological argument. And he claimed that if something, not him, the cosmological argument claims that if something exists, a necessary being should have existed, and if I exist, then the necessary being should also exist. This argument has an empirical premise. The God, the necessary being, is constructed as a transcendent being. The conclusion is not an empirical one. Therefore, this argument is also invalid. When it comes to the theological argument, there is a pattern within everything um, in the phenomenal world. For instance, the relationship between causes and conditions has a pattern, and it has been created by God. This argument indicated an architectural process. It is not clear whether this architect is a creator God or not. However, Kant rejects this argument too because it lacks empirical factual evidence. He suggested that this argument also cannot prove the existence of God. Right. Right. Knowing the metaphysical things would not help us understand the external world because it is impossible to have a common agreement on what has been defined as metaphysical. Even the ordinary sense knowing metaphysical things would neither affect one's personal growth nor the development of the world. Nevertheless, it would be helpful to understand the world. I hope you will be able to get an introductory idea about Kantian metaphysics. So, you can use these references for your further studies. Right. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Until next time, have a great day.